Thank you for watching or listening to the ASB Author Showcase, spotlighting authors from around the world. ASB Author Showcase is produced by Author School of Business, an author-owned organization helping authors to fully understand the business side of being an author. If you would like to be on the show or to be a sponsor of the show, simply email us at authorschool@outlook.com. Your hostess for today's show is Charlotte Cannion.
I'm your host for this evening, and I'm an award-winning author, speaker, and actress, Charlotte Cannion. And today I'm proud to be interviewing Sue McGray. She's the author of the book, Becoming Visible, Letting Go of Things That Hide Your True Beauty. Now, this is a book that has a powerful journey on how you can find your voice, your courage, and your calling. Welcome to the show, Sue.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. I'm excited to be with you.
Well, but before we dive into your book, I think my listeners love to hear a little bit about your background, like your family and where you were raised, and just a little bit of
Okay.
who you were.
Well, who I was before and who I am today, I hardly know. But I was raised by very, very conservative parents, Christian parents. My dad was a bivocational pastor. We had very little. We lived in the country, raised most of our food. Times were very tough. He didn't make much money pastoring and had to supplement with other things. I got married way too young. I was pressured into getting married. Had a lot of red flags going on, but I didn't know what they were. I didn't notice the red flags. And so I stayed in that marriage for 30 years. And God just, I stayed because I had life's commands. I was taught you do not divorce. My mom would say, you make your bed, you lay in it. And so I knew that as long as they lived, I didn't want to hurt them, Charlotte. I didn't want to hurt my parents. But it got so bad, physically abusive, verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, a lot of things going on. And so I left a 30-year marriage with nothing, moved into an empty one-bedroom apartment. And I tell you what, Charlotte, I found the most peace I'd ever had in my life. It was so peaceful. And part of that was just God's presence on me. And the other is that I was away from so much stress and pressure. And so God just showed up during that time. So,
Yeah. Now, I have to ask you, your book talks a lot about beauty and inner beauty and outer beauty. But I happen to know you were a Mary Kay consultant. Did that have a lot of influence on your book?
well, I wrote the book for my 5 granddaughters because they call me Granny Sue, Charlotte. And the only thing they knew about me was that they would come to my house and we'd play dress up. So I wrote the book to give them a glimpse of a little bit about my life. But without my business career, without the influence of Mary Kay Ash, who was a powerful Christian woman, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, we have to put ourselves somewhere. And I'm so grateful that I put myself there because I had a lot of growth. I had a lot of finding myself. And it was because of my Mary Kay, and I gained strength, I gained courage and confidence. And yet I was willing to hang on to that marriage. And I became very codependent, which is very unhealthy to do that. But I did. I was very codependent. I had no say-so. I had no voice. I would pull in the driveway and be a nobody. I knew nothing. I wasn't allowed to know anything. And that's very damaging after a while. But yes, my Mary Kay career was a lifesaver for me. I worked the business for 37 years. I got to the top of the ladder, and Mary Kay, in her wisdom, gave us what she called a family security program. And that's what I'm able to live on today, is because she pays me every month. And I'm so grateful for that. And it's because of the work that I did before.
Oh, that is super
rewarding.
Something, reading through your book and all, do you think a lot of women feel invisible?
Oh, I absolutely do. After I wrote the book, and like I said, I wrote it for my granddaughters, but I started speaking, and I really wanted to speak. I really wanted a voice. After I got out of the bad place, I remarried a wonderful, godly man, and I started speaking. And so many times, Charlotte, women would just start to cry. Sometimes they would get up and leave because I was telling their story. So many women feel invisible. I honestly thought I was. I remember the day that it hit me that none of us want to walk into a room of strangers by ourselves when we don't know anyone. And I remember thinking, oh, it doesn't matter because they can't see me. And then I replayed that in my mind. And the reason I thought they couldn't see me is because I couldn't see myself. I was so had such low self-esteem. I wasn't worthy of being seen. And so it was through that, and it's been so rewarding to reach women, to be able to reach out and I know where they are. So many times that I can just walk into a room and I can tell the hurting women that because you can pick up on it, and they think they're hiding it. I thought I was hiding it. I thought I was fooling everybody. But I wasn't. Yes, I really did think I was invisible.
So you were a speaker before you were a writer? Is that correct?
Well, I spoke within my organization, within my business. I did some public speaking, but I really wanted to speak to Christian groups. I wanted to speak to women's conferences, and I didn't have that opportunity. And so people would say, well, you won't be able to do that if you don't have a book. And so in writing the book, and I do have a second book that is about divine appointments. And I truly believe that we are every day we have divine appointments that God brings us to and introduces us to people. Some people are just for a moment. Some people are for a lifetime. And some people are for a reason that we meet people. So yes, I wrote the book and then had the chance to start speaking.
Well, let me ask you this. Was writing easy for you? Did you did you get a journalism major, or how did you get about writing?
I'm absolutely not even a writer. My first book, I took off a half a day a week and worked on it. And I never journaled because I was always afraid somebody would find my journaling and there might be a misspelled word in there. That's my biggest fear, is that I'm going to be made a fool of, right? And so here I am out here in front of everybody doing all this stuff. But no, I'm not a writer, but I would work on the book a half a day a week, half a day, and then I would go home. I would come home and I would go to bed and cover my head up because it was so gut-wrenching hard to go back where I had been through some of those things. I don't know if we have time for me to tell you another story. Do you want to do that later?
Yeah, we'll do that in the second section because we've only got a couple of minutes left in this one.
Yeah, but things happen to us, shapes us. As they said, it makes us better or makes us better. And so I've had some tough things to happen to me. In addition to being in a domestic violence marriage, I had some other really hard things happen to me.
Well, it's true. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, and we grow from those. And I think you know this, but I have 20 grandchildren. I hope to be a real good influence to them. But what I want them to know is we don't grow from those positive things. We do grow from our challenges in life. That's
Absolutely.
what makes us, builds our character, makes us, who we are. And
Absolutely.
Who we're going to come. Well, we've only got a couple of seconds, but I have to ask you, you have all kinds of quotes in your book, but perfection leads to procrastination. That was kind of an interesting.
Absolutely. I was with a friend last weekend and she said, I'm a perfectionist. I have to have everything perfect. And I just feel sorry for people who are perfectionists because you won't ever do anything. You've got to be willing to fail and to mess up in order to do anything. And so if you wait till you get it right, you won't ever get it done. So absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was a real profound statement.
So
Well,
I
Sue,
am
we're
not
going
a perfectionist. I'm willing to throw it out to the wind.
to well, that's good. Well, we're going to be right back after a brief message from our sponsors.
Each and every one of us has a mission in life. Mine is to help people laugh through the good times and the bad. My name is Charlotte Cannion, and I'm an author, a speaker, and a host on Indie Beacon Radio. If you need me to speak at an event or autograph my book, you can contact me at charlotte@charlottecannion.com. Thank you, and have a blessed day.
Marianne Fairmouth is a career consultant with 30 years' experience in the national recruiting world, a multi-award-winning author in multi-genres, and a speaker that gives presentations to help you succeed. Her book, Revolutionary Recruiting, made the top 20 global list of recruiting books. Find her on Amazon, your favorite bookstore, or at fairmouth.com. Welcome back to the ASB Author Showcase with your hostess, Charlotte Cannion.
Welcome back. We've been speaking with Sue McGray. She is fascinating lady, has a fascinating story, and we're not going to be able to even touch the tip of the iceberg. But we'd like her to, tell a little more about her book, Becoming Visible, letting go of things that hide your true beauty. Now, we know that everybody has beauty inside, but Sue, I'm going to ask you, probably you've been asked this before, but what is your favorite chapter in your book?
Oh my goodness, I don't know what the favorite one is. I tell about when I was a junior in high school, and this has probably made the biggest impact on my life even till today. In big families, older kids took care of younger kids, and we had a big family, and it was my job to take care of Anne, and Anne was my child. I made her clothes, cut her hair. I was a teenager, but she was my child. And we had several siblings, and we moved to a bigger city for Dad to find some work, and we were catching the bus out by the mailbox. And so we got on the school bus along with some other people. It was a house that rented to several families, so it wasn't just our family. There were several groups of kids there, and we got on the bus and we went down to the next stop, and the bus driver opened the door and the kids started to get on, and somebody reached down and picked up a shoe. And kids being kids, there was laughter. Well, I saw the shoe and I did not laugh. This was my little sister Anne's shoe. It was devastating. What happened? Where is she? And so I got off the bus with my siblings and we ran back up the hill to her house, and my little sister was laying in the road. I did not know what had happened to her. My parents were at work. I called them. I got something to put on her, and we went to the hospital. And back in that day, we had a radio station, WKDA, that would wave the black flag. Before the family were told, WKDA waved the black flag that morning and told that Desi Ann Smith had been run over by the school bus and had been killed. Well, I have to tell you that day scarred me forever. I made a commitment that I would never hurt like that again. I went to my backyard that afternoon and I dug myself a hole, Charlotte. I dug as fast and as hard as and I promised myself I put every feeling, every emotion, everything I had in that hole in my backyard. And I decided I would never, ever, ever hurt like that again. Well,
Wow.
I built a wall, and that's part of why I was invisible too. You see, I didn't let anybody get close to me, and even in my marriage, I didn't know how to break that down. Well, in God's wisdom, He gave me a daughter. I had a son, and 7 years later, I had a daughter. My daughter Amanda would say, "Mom, tell me about Ann today. Tell me about Ann." And every time she would force me to tell her about Ann, it was purifying, it was cleansing. And even to today, anytime I'm able to talk about Ann, and I cry a lot when I'm talking about Ann, and it makes other people feel uncomfortable, but it's healing. So my message for other people is that let people talk about their pain because it's therapeutic for them. And so that's kind of part of what the book was for me, and bringing out some of those stories about Ann and losing Ann, that if that had not happened to me, I don't know how I would have developed in life, but I was stunned for the big part. My family didn't know how to handle the kids. Back in those days, there was no counseling. Her picture hung over the mantle at my folks' house. We never talked about Ann.
So that
Friends,
parents, yeah.
friends would come and console my parents, but nobody ever said, "Sue, how are you doing? Where are you? What's going on with you?" And so it built and it built and it built. And so that I was, even with several layers of things that caused me to be more invisible than the other. And so that's in the story, that's in the book, that that just scarred me. But that was a long time ago. And my parents did the best they could do. They did all they knew to do. It just wasn't, it was the day, it was the time that there wasn't anybody around us. I have a sister that's a little younger than me. And, I spent my whole life not knowing my sister because I was grieving the sister I lost. So I never found the sister I had. And I didn't realize that. People who have counseling think everybody needs counseling. Well, I think everybody needs counseling. So through my counseling, so through my counseling, I realized that I didn't know my sister, and we're still not there. We try. We are better than we used to be, but it's been very hard because I spent all those years suffering and grieving the sister that I lost.
Yeah, the system, I think the system still fails. Something you don't know about me is in November of last year, in fact, we're getting ready to come up on the 1 year anniversary. I lost one of my grandsons and he committed suicide.
Oh, Charlotte.
So,
that's awful. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I have to remain strong because my daughter, she lost her, and it's devastating. He was 20 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They just celebrated his 21st birthday. She doesn't live in Texas, and that's where I live. She lives in Arkansas. So I wasn't there for his birthday, but I can totally understand how you're, the loss stays with you and the grief stays with you, but you learn how to, get past it. And I appreciate the fact that you're sharing it, because I've been asked to talk to Stephen's ministry and stuff, about the loss. And I think you probably do this as well. I try to find the funny stories, the treasure stories, the things that you remember.
Sure. Yeah. And, people talk about closure. Well, there is no such thing as closure. You move on, and it gets a little bit easier the more you talk about it, and you heal somewhat, but you don't ever forget it. It's part of you. It's part of our makeup of who we are and how we face life, what we do with life after that.
Well, see, what it's allowed you to do is, you've worked through it and you found the true beauty in Sue, and that's why
I
you wrote
never
a book.
I never knew I was worthy of that. I never knew, and I still wrestle with that. I was taught that we should always stay humble, and humbleness is next to godliness. This is what I was taught.
Mhm.
So when there's accolades and when there's awards and things like that, it's hard for me. I don't do that well because of the way I was raised. We have life's commands that guide us the whole way, and but God loves me, and I know that.
Well, and he put you in powerful positions. You're in Tennessee, correct?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. I thought that's where you were, and you hold several powerful positions. I know you're president of Christian Women in Media and all. You said you had written another book. Was it before or after this one?
It was after. It was actually during COVID that I felt like I had to do something. And in looking back, I look at the way that my life has been woven with the name of the book is Life-Changing Encounters and Divine Appointments. And so there's 25 biblical stories from the Bible. Of course, it's kind of a Bible study, but it's how that God wove it. And there's 3 chapters on David because there's different lives of David, right? There's the David that was brave and killed Goliath, and then there's David with Saul, and then there's David with Bathsheba, and Paul. And if he'd not had the encounter on the road to Damascus, he was the one that introduced all Gentiles to Christ. Without that, God would have used somebody else. But it's just different scriptures in the Bible and characters that not only affected people's lives then, but affect their lives today.
Right. There's a funny thing I want to get because we're kind of going down a rabbit hole, and I don't want it to be a depressing
Yes.
interview.
Absolutely.
But you've got in your book, you said if your bucket has a hole in it, no one can plug that hole but you.
Oh, that don't you know people that you can never build them up enough. You can never give them enough accolades or compliments or affirm them enough because they're still gonna have that hole in their bucket. And that hole, Christ can heal that hole. Christ can take care of that. But people don't know how to do that and don't know how to
How that
find so many times. But I have a family member that, it's all she's compares herself, and that's a bad thing altogether. We could preach on that forever, couldn't we? But
yeah,
when
but
you
yeah,
don't have a good solid foundation, you
yeah,
can't do enough to make
yeah,
them feel good about themselves.
yeah. Well, Sue, hold that thought because we're going to be back and we've got one short session. So after we
Okay.
have a short commercial, we'll be back with Sue McGray.
The garden was still there, full of vegetables and flowers, and a little lone rabbit sat nibbling on a pea plant. Cooney picked, chopped, and cooked some cabbage, chop, 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 and Coda picked 2 carrots and cut them into pieces. I'm so happy to have a new friend. The end. Wasn't that fun?
Yeah!
Welcome back to the ASB Author Showcase with your hostess, Charlotte Cannion.
Welcome back. It's been my pleasure to speak with Sue McGray. She's got a fascinating story. I guess her book kind of leans toward her memoirs, but it's called Becoming Visible, Letting Go of the Things That Hide Your True Beauty. And I guess basically your book kind of talks about how what happens in our lives shapes us. But we've only got a short time to wrap up this talk. So I want people to be able to get your book. I want to be able to find your website. So if you would give them information how they can find you, your website and where you might be coming up to speak.
Absolutely. Well, my website is Sue Z, SUEZ, McGray.com. That's SUEZ, McGray.com. The book's available on Amazon. It was at Barnes & Noble and all kinds of other places, but that's the main place right now is on Amazon. And my website, if it's ordered through my website, I can personally sign it and ship it out. So that would be an honor for me to do that. This weekend, I'm honored to be speaking at Women of Film and Television. I think it's called WIF, or Southern Women of Film and Television. And I'll be presenting one of the Alice Awards, but I'll also be on a panel and be able to speak through that. So that's coming up right away. So it's always an honor to be asked to share. That's my heart. That's my happy place when I can do that.
Well, you do it quite well, and like I say, your book is really fascinating. I love the cover with the big Southern Belle hat.
Well, I have another hobby, Charlotte, if I might say that I started painting a few years ago, a short few years ago. I'd never painted, but I always wondered if I could. And so what I paint now is women with big hats. That's all is women with big hats. So that's kind of
that's what that picture is. Well, it's a beautiful picture. Well, we've only got a few minutes left, but I'd like you to, in 2 or 3 sentences, if you could give advice to, I know we have listeners that want to be writers, and you and I both know, I think everyone has a book inside them. It's just very few of them get it out. But if you could give advice to a listener on how to get started to writing their book, what would be your words of advice, Sue?
Well, the advice I gave today was, she said, I want to write a book. And I said, do you journal? And we laughed about journaling earlier because I never did that. But I said, that's your book. If you journal, that's your book. So just keep doing what you're doing. And then know who your audience is. If your audience is, well, first of all, your audience, if you're a Christian, your audience is one. You just want to please God and everything with that. But no, if you're talking to young women, if you're talking to men and women, if you're talking to Christians or non-Christians, kind of hammer that out to decide who is my audience so that I know where I'm going with this. And then I think you just have to take a chance, because I don't know that there's any real answers. I'm certainly not an authority on it. I don't know all the answers. I know people do self-publishing, people pay to get their books published. Some people are published by getting paid. So I think there's just knowing that, maybe take some courses on it, ask questions, and just start. And maybe you need some help doing it, get somebody that can look at things with you and give you a better perspective and say, that kind of doesn't even make good sense. Let's come back to earth here and be real. I think people want us to be real. I can't be a Charlotte Cannion. I can't be like you. And so, and I think here again, it's that comparison that we are never good enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not cute enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have degrees enough. We're always going to come up short, because what I'm going to do is measure my worst qualities with your best qualities. I'll never win when I do that. So we just have to find who we are and trust ourselves. Just trust ourselves.
Yeah, we have to be the best we can be, for sure.
And be a good listener. I think that is so important, and not give advice when it's not wanted. I have a philosophy, Charlotte, that I don't give you the answer if you don't ask me the question.
Oh,
You
I
know,
like that. I may have to use that. Sue,
well,
it has been a pleasure to interview. Our time is just
thank you.
running out, but it has been a pleasure. You've been a fabulous guest. And I want to thank you again for being on the show. I'm your
Thank
host,
you.
Charlotte Cannion, and I want you to remember, a rose is like a book. You can't know its beauty until you look at it. And well, a book is like a rose. You won't know its full beauty till you open it. Until next time, this is Charlotte. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching or listening to the ASB Author Showcase, spotlighting authors from around the world. ASB Author Showcase is produced by Author School of Business, an author-owned organization helping authors to fully understand the business side of being an author. If you would like to be on the show or to be a sponsor of the show, simply email us at authorschool@outlook.com. Thank you to Happy Follows for creating the music Frolic of Words for the ASB Author Showcase. You can find his music on all major platforms